the magical journey, extended bedtime story as you settle into this moment, feeling your body sink deeper into comfort. Let yourself drift into this enchanting tale. You might find your eyelids growing heavy before the story ends. Or perhaps you'll try to stay awake to hear every word. Either way is perfectly fine. Just let go, relax, and allow the magic to unfold. Our story begins in a sprawling vineyard that stretches as far as the eye can see, with rolling hills covered in emerald green vines, heavy with clusters of purple grapes. The morning mist still clings to the valleys, creating a dreamlike atmosphere that seems to shimmer with possibility. In this magical place lives a fairy whose wings catch the early sunlight like stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the dewy grass. This fairy has made it her ritual to visit a particular spot each day, an ancient oak log that sits perfectly positioned overlooking the entire vineyard. The log, weathered smooth by countless seasons, has become her favorite perch. Today, like so many days before, she carries her beloved guitar, its wooden body worn to a golden patina from years of loving use. As she settles onto the log, adjusting her delicate wings behind her, she begins to tune the guitar strings. Each note rings clear and pure in the crisp morning air. The first chord she strikes seems to awaken something magical in the atmosphere around her. The sound doesn't just travel through the air, it seems to weave itself into the very fabric of the morning, creating ripples of harmony that danced visually before her eyes, like aurora borealis made of sound. She begins to play a melody that flows from some deep wellspring of creativity within her soul. Her fingers dance across the strings with practiced grace, and each note that emerges seems to have its own personality, its own color, its own emotional resonance. The music doesn't just fill the air, it transforms it, turning the ordinary morning into something transcendent. As a place, she enters that magical state that musicians know well, where the boundary between player and the instrument dissolves. Is she creating the music, or is the music creating her? The question becomes meaningless as she sinks deeper into the experience. Her consciousness seems to expand beyond the confines of her physical form, merging with the melodies that flow from her guitar. The gentle morning breeze caresses her face, carrying with it the complex perfume of the vineyard, the sweet scent of ripening grapes, the earthy aroma of rich soil, the fresh green smell of leaves still damp with dew. The breeze flows through her gossamer wings, creating a subtle vibration that harmonizes with the music she's playing. Above her, the leaves of nearby trees rustle in rhythm with her melody, as if nature itself has become her orchestra. The sound is like 1,000 tiny percussion instruments, creating a complex polyrhythm that weaves in and out of her guitar notes. Occasionally, a leaf breaks free from its branch and spirals down through the air, dancing to the music before coming to rest on the grass below. The grass itself seems alive with the music, each blade swaying in waves that ripple outward from where she sits, creating patterns that look like the surface of a lake touched by a gentle breeze. The effect is hypnotic, mesmerizing, drawing her consciousness deeper into the musical trance. In the distance, wildflowers, the landscape light scattered gems, deep purple lavender, bright yellow sunflowers, delicate white daisies, and roses in every shade from palas pink to deepest crimson. Their fragrances mingle and dance on the air currents, creating an olfactory symphony that complements the auditory one flowing from her guitar. High above, clouds drift lazily across the sky, their shapes constantly shifting and transforming. She watches a cloud that looks like a sailing ship slowly morph into what might be a dragon, then a castle, then something entirely abstract. The interplay between the earthbound music and the celestial cloud dance creates a sense of being suspended between heaven and earth. She can feel the solid reality of the oak log beneath her, its bark rough against her legs, its ancient wood still holding warmth from yesterday's sunshine. This physical anchor keeps her grounded, even as her spirit soars with the music. The trunk represents stability, endurance, the slow, patient growth of wisdom over time. The melody she plays today is one she has never played before. It seems to emerge spontaneously from some infinite reservoir of musical possibility. Each phrase builds on the last, creating a sonic architecture that grows more complex and beautiful with each passing moment. The music tells a story without words, painting emotional landscapes that shift and evolve like living things. As the morning progresses and the sun climbs higher in the sky, painting everything in warm golden light, her playing becomes more fluid, more natural, as if the guitar has become an extension of her own body. The music flows through her like breath, like heartbeat, like the circulation of her very life force. She comes to this place most days, drawn by something she can't quite name. Perhaps it's the way the acoustics of the valley seem to amplify and enrich every note. Perhaps it's the sense of connection she feels here, as if this spot sits at the intersection of multiple dimensions of reality. Or perhaps it's simply the peace she finds in this routine, this daily communion between her soul and the infinite possibilities of music. The vineyard stretches out below her like a living tapestry, with workers moving among the vines like characters in a pastoral painting. Their movements are slow and deliberate, harmonizing with the unhurried pace of rural life. She can see them checking the grapes, tending to the vines, their work as much a part of the natural rhythm as her music. Beyond the vineyard, a small village nestles in the valley, its red tile roofs gleaming in the morning sun. Smoke rises lazily from chimneys, and occasionally she can catch the faint sound of church bells carried on the wind. The village represents community, human connection, the simple pleasures of everyday life. Today feels like any other day, yet there's something different in the air, a sense of anticipation, as if the universe is holding its breath, waiting for something magical to unfold. She continues to play, lost in the music, unaware that she's about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. In a brief pause between musical phrases, as her fingers rest momentarily on the strings, and the last note fades into the morning air, she hears something unexpected, the faintest sound of applause. The clapping is so soft she almost thinks she's imagined it. But there it is again, tiny hands, creating tiny sounds of appreciation. She turns, her wings rustling with the movement, and sees him, a small field mouse standing upright beside a nearby tree, his tiny paws pressed together in enthusiastic applause. His fur is a rich brown with patches of gold that catch the sunlight, and his dark eyes sparkle with intelligence and warmth. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. He squeaks in a voice that's high-pitched, but unmistakably sincere. I've been listening from my home in the tree root, and I simply had to come out and tell you how wonderful your music is. It's like magic itself flowing through those strings. The fairy smiles, touched by this unexpected appreciation. Thank you, little friend. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Music is meant to be shared, after all. The mouse scurries closer, his movements quick and energetic. Oh, but it's more than just music, isn't it? There's something special about the way you play. It's as if you're rechanneling something much larger than yourself, the very harmonics of the universe. Perhaps this catches her attention. Few beings understand the deeper aspects of musical magic. You speak as if you know something about harmonic theory. Indeed, I do. The mouse's eyes light up with excitement. I've spent many years studying the relationship between sound vibrations and reality itself. In fact, I have something back at my home that I think you'd find absolutely fascinating. A book that might interest someone with your particular gifts. Curiosity sparked, the fairy carefully places her guitar in its worn leather case. I'd be honored to see it. The mouse begins to lead the way, his tiny legs carrying him surprisingly quickly across the uneven ground. Follow me, but mind your head when we get to my entrance. Fairy folk tend to be a bit taller than my usual guests. They make their way around the massive tree trunk, and the fairy marvels at the intricate ecosystem that exists in this one small area. Moss covers the north side of the tree in a carpet of emerald green. Tiny insects buzz and flit about their business, and everywhere there are signs of the complex web of life that most beings never notice. The mouse's entrance is a perfectly round hole in the base of the tree, worn smooth by countless comings and goings. True to his warning, the fairy has to duck her head and angle her guitar case carefully to fit through the opening. The interior of the tree is a wonder to behold. What appeared from the outside to be solid wood has been hollowed out into a complex network of tunnels and chambers. The walls have been lined with tiny bioluminescent fungi that provide a soft, welcoming glow. The air smells of earth and growing things, with hints of the mouse's favorite foods, nuts, seeds, and dried berries. Mind the low branch there? The mouse calls back as they navigate deeper into the tree. And watch your step on these root stairs. I carved them myself, but they're sized for someone of my proportions. The deeper they go, the more amazed the fairy becomes. This isn't just a simple burrow, it's an architectural marvel, a testament to the mouse's ingenuity and patience. Tiny rooms branch off from the main tunnel, each with its own purpose and personality. Just as the fairy begins to worry that they're getting too far from any source of natural light, she hears a soft click, the sound of a latch being turned. Then comes the creak of hinges as a door swings open, and suddenly they're flooded with warm, golden light. Welcome to my home, the mouse announces proudly, gesturing with one tiny paw for her to enter. The fairy steps through the doorway and gasps in amazement. The mouse's home is far more spacious than the tunnel suggested, opening out into a circular chamber that must span the entire width of the tree's trunk. The walls curve gracefully upward, and windows, actual windows with glass, have been cleverly carved into the tree's bark to let in natural light. The space is filled with an eclectic collection of furniture, all perfectly sized for a mouse, but arranged with an eye for aesthetics that wouldn't be out of place in a fairy tale illustration. Tiny chairs upholstered in moss green velvet, a dining table made from a cross-section of branch, shelves carved directly into the living wood of the tree's interior. "This is incredible." The fairy breathes, turning slowly to take it all in. "How long did it take you to create all this?" "Oh, about 7 years," the mouse says casually, as if excavating an entire tree home is the most natural thing in the world. "I had help from a family of woodpeckers for the initial hollowing, and the squirrels assisted with some of the higher work. Community effort, you know." He leads her on a tour of the space, pointing out various treasures and curiosities he's collected over the years. There are smooth river stones that serve as paperweights, pressed flowers mounted in tiny frames, and an impressive collection of seeds and nuts organized in glass jars of various sizes. But it's when they reach the far wall that the fairy's breath cut floor to ceiling. The entire wall is covered with shelves, and every shelf is packed with books. Not mouse-sized books, but full-sized volumes that must represent a considerable effort to acquire and transport. "Now this," the mouse says with obvious pride, "is my real treasure. This is a magic bookshelf, and every single book on these shelves possesses some form of enchantment." The fairy stares in wonder at the collection. The books range from ancient leather-bound tomes to more modern volumes, from tiny chapbooks to massive. Some glow with a soft inner light. Others seem to shimmer and shift when she's not looking directly at them. "Magic books?" she asks, reaching toward one particularly intriguing volume. "Ah, but I won't tell you what makes them special," the mouse says with a mysterious smile. "The magic is always stronger when you discover it for yourself. Choose one that calls to you." The fairy approaches the bookshelf slowly, running her finger along the spines of the various volumes. Some feel warm to the touch, others cool. One book seems to vibrate slightly under her fingertip, while another feels as solid and immovable as stone. She pulls the first book from the shelf, a slim volume bound in midnight blue leather with silver clasps. Opening, it reveals page after page of musical notation, but not like any music she's ever seen. The notes seem to move and dance on the page, rearranging themselves even as she watches. Fascinating, but not quite what she's looking for. She closes the book and returns it to its place. The second book is larger, bound in green leather with golden vines embossed on the cover. Inside are detailed illustrations of plants and herbs, each drawing so lifelike it seems the plants might grow right off the page. Some pages even carry the actual scent of the herbs they depict. Again fascinating, but not calling to her. It's the third book that changes everything. This one is bound in deep brown leather that feels soft and supple under her hands, as if it's been handled and loved by countless readers over the years. When she opens it, the pages fall naturally to reveal a fold-out illustration. The mouse's eyes light up with anticipation, and she can see the slightest smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The fairy unfolds the page completely, revealing the most breathtakingly beautiful painting of an ocean scene she's ever witnessed. It is not just the technical skill of the artist, though that is considerable, but something more. The painting seems to pulse with life, the waves appearing to move ever so slightly, the clouds drifting across the painted sky. This painting, the mouse says softly, is magic in the same way that your music is magic. Intrigued, the fairy takes her guitar from its case and strikes a gentle chord. As the notes ring out, something extraordinary happens. The painting begins to respond. The waves seem to move more noticeably. The clouds drift more visibly across the sky. And the entire scene takes on a three-dimensional quality that defies explanation. She plays another chord, experimenting with different harmonics, and watches in amazement as the painting becomes more and more lifelike. The ocean waves now crash visibly against the painted shore. Seabirds wheel overhead, and she can almost smell the salt air. With each note she plays, the painting becomes more real, more alive. Soon it's not just a painting anymore. It's a window into another world, a portal to a place of incredible beauty and mystery. The resonance between sound and visual reality. The mouse explains, "Your music is awakening the magic that was painted into this scene centuries ago by a master who understood the deep connections between all forms of art." The fairy continues to play, watching in fascination as the three-dimensional scene becomes more and more vivid. She can hear the crash of waves, feel the warmth of the painted sun on her face, taste the salt spray in the air, and then something even more extraordinary happens. She feels a gentle tugging sensation, as if the painting is drawing her toward it. The gravitational pull is subtle but insistent, and she finds herself leaning closer and closer to the magical scene. "Go with it," the mouse encourages. "Trust the magic. You'll be pleasantly surprised by where it takes you." Taking a deep breath, the fairy allows herself to be drawn into the painting. She feels a moment of disorientation, as if she's falling through space and time. And then suddenly she's standing on solid ground again. But this isn't the mouse's cozy home anymore, she says, standing on a cliff top overlooking a vast ocean that stretches to the horizon in every direction. The view is exactly like the one in the painting, but now it's completely real. She can feel the wind whipping through her hair, taste the salt spray on her lips, hear the thunderous crash of waves against the rocks far below. Behind her stretches a landscape of rolling hills covered in wild grasses that wave like a golden green sea in the coastal breeze. The sky overhead is a dramatic canvas of fast-moving clouds, with occasional breaks that allow shafts of sunlight to lance down and illuminate patches of the ocean's surface like spotlights on a stage. The ocean itself is wilder than any she's ever seen. White-capped waves race towards shore with tremendous energy, exploding into fountains of spray. When they hit the rocky coastline, the sound is constant and powerful, not just the crash of individual waves, but the deep, rhythmic breathing of the sea itself. Far out in the deeper water, she spots something that makes her catch her breath. At first glance, it looks like a small island, but as she watches more carefully, she realizes it's moving. A whale, massive beyond imagining, surfaces occasionally to breathe, its dark bulk barely distinguishable from the churning water around it. The sky above is a masterpiece of natural art. Heavy clouds race across the heavens, their shadows creating a constantly shifting pattern of light and dark across the ocean's surface. Occasionally, a break in the cloud cover allows a shaft of brilliant sunlight to pierce through, creating a golden pathway across the water that seems to lead directly to the horizon. The fairy stands for a long moment, simply taking it all in, overwhelmed by the raw beauty and power of this place. The wind tugs at her wings, and she has to steady herself against its strength. Every sense is fully engaged, the visual spectacular of sea and sky, the thunderous sound of crashing waves, the taste and smell of salt air, the feel of wind and spray on her skin. Curious to explore this magnificent landscape further, she begins to make her way down the cliff face. A narrow path winds back and forth across the rocky slope, clearly worn by countless feet over many years. As she descends, the sound of the waves grows even louder, and she can feel the power of the ocean through the very rock beneath her feet. Halfway down the cliff, she pauses to look back the way she came, but instead of seeing the path she just traveled, she sees only more of this coastal landscape stretching inland. There's no sign of where she came from, no indication of how she might return to the painted portal, yet somehow this doesn't worry her. She feels drawn to continue exploring this magical realm. The path eventually levels out onto a narrow beach composed of smooth, rounded stones that click and clatter with each wave. The fairy makes her way carefully across the shifting surface until she finds a wooden bench positioned just above the high tide line. The bench is weathered silver gray by years of exposure to salt and sun, but it's still solid and inviting. She settles onto the bench and allows herself to fully experience this wild sea. The waves arrive in sets, 3 or 4 large ones, followed by a brief calm, then another series of breakers. Each wave is unique, with its own personality, its own pattern of foam and spray. The whale she spotted from the clifftop surfaces again, much closer to shore this time. It's a magnificent creature, its dark skin gleaming wet in the filtered sunlight. As she watches, it performs a spectacular breach, launching its enormous bulk completely out of the water before crashing back down in an explosion of white foam. The sound reaches her several seconds later, a tremendous splash that echoes off the cliff walls. She finds herself wondering about the underwater world that whale inhabits. What would she hear if she could somehow listen beneath the waves? What songs might the whales be singing to each other in the dark depths? What other creatures share that mysterious realm? The temperature here is perfect, warm enough to be comfortable, but with enough of a sea breeze to keep the air fresh and invigorating. She can feel the fine mist of sea spray settling on her skin, leaving tiny droplets that taste faintly of salt when they reach her lips. High above, seabirds wheel and cry, riding the updrafts created by the wind hitting the cliff face. She watches their effortless flight with admiration, noting how they can hover motionless in the streaming air, or suddenly dive at incredible speed toward the water below. While she is absorbed in watching the aerial ballet of the seabirds, that she first hears it, a low, rumbling sound that seems to come from everywhere at once. At first she thinks it might be distant thunder, but the sound has a different quality, more organic, more deliberate. The rumble grows louder, and now she can distinguish a rhythmic quality to it. Thump, 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 thump. It sounds almost like a massive heartbeat echoing across the landscape. She stands and turns, scanning the sky for the source of the sound. There, in the distance, she spots something that makes her heart race with excitement. A dragon, its massive wings beating with the rhythm she's been hearing, flies toward her across the coastal sky. As it draws closer, she can make out more details. This is no fierce, frightening monster from dark fairy tales, but a magnificent creature that seems to embody the wild beauty of this coastal realm. Its scales shimmer with colors that shift from deep ocean blue to silver to hints of green, like the sea itself made manifest in living form. The dragon's wings are enormous, easily spanning 50 feet from tip to tip. Each wing beat sends powerful downdrafts across the water's surface, creating circular patterns that spread outward like ripples from a stone dropped in a pond. The creature circles once overhead, and the fairy can see its eyes, ancient, intelligent, and somehow kindly, despite their size and obvious power. Then, with a grace that belies its enormous size, the dragon settles onto the stone beach nearby. The impact of its landing sends pebbles sliding and clicking in all directions. The fairy can feel the vibration through the soles of her feet. And for a moment, the constant sound of waves is overshadowed by the rustle and clatter of displaced stones. In a voice that's deep and resonant, like distant thunder, but warm and welcoming, the dragon speaks. Greetings, small traveler. I've been watching your journey with great interest. There's something I'd like to show you if you're willing to trust me. The fairy looks up at this magnificent creature, feeling no fear despite its overwhelming size. Something in the dragon's manner speaks of wisdom and benevolence. I would be honored, she replies. Then climb onto my back and hold on tight. We have far to travel, and the winds over the open ocean can be quite strong. The dragon lowers itself to make the climb easier, and the fairy carefully makes her way up its side, finding handholds among the smooth, warm scales. The dragon's back is surprisingly comfortable, with a natural saddle-like depression between its shoulder blades that seems designed for a rider. Ready? The dragon asks, and without waiting for an answer, launches itself into the sky with a powerful thrust of its massive wings. The sensation of flight is incredible. The fairy has her own wings, of course, but they're designed for short distances and delicate maneuvering among flowers and trees. This is something else entirely, soaring high above the ocean on wings that can carry them 4 miles without effort. The view from this height is breathtaking. She can see the entire coastline stretching in both directions, an endless series of cliffs and bays carved by millennia of waves. Inland, the landscape rolls away in gentle hills covered with what looks like heather and wild grasses. Below them, the ocean reveals patterns invisible from ground level. She can see underwater formations creating different colors in the water. Pale turquoise over sandy shallows, deep blue over underwater canyons, darker patches where kelp forests sway in the submarine currents. The whale she saw earlier is still visible far below, and from this height she can see it's not alone. There are several others scattered across the visible ocean, their dark shapes appearing and disappearing as they surface to breathe. The dragon flies in comfortable silence, focused on its flight path, but occasionally adjusting course to catch favorable air currents. The fairy can feel the lift as they hit an updraft, rising higher without any effort from the dragon's wings, and the slight stomach-dropping sensation when they encounter downdrafts. The sea spray reaches them even at this height, carried by the strong coastal winds. Each droplet that reaches her face tastes of salt and adventure, of distant shores and mysterious depths. After what feels like an hour of flight, though it could have been much longer or shorter, time seems to behave differently in this magical realm. The fairy spots their destination. An island rises from the ocean ahead, but this is unlike any island she's ever seen. From a distance, it appears to be covered in structures that gleam and sparkle in the sunlight. As they draw closer, she can see that what she took for buildings are actually formations of crystal, huge spires and domes of what looks like quartz or some similar mineral, all growing from the island's surface in impossible profusion. The dragon begins its descent in a wide spiral, giving her time to take in the full wonder of this crystalline island. The structures, if they can be called that, seem to pulse with their own internal light. Colors shift and flow through the translucent surfaces like aurora caught in solid form. They land in what appears to be a courtyard, surrounded by crystal formations. The dragoness feet finding purchase on a surface that looks like polished marble, but feels warm and alive. The sound of their landing echoes strangely among the crystal spires, creating harmonious tones that linger in the air long after the initial impact. "Welcome to the island of resonance," the dragon says as the ferry dismounts. "This is a place where sound and light and the very fabric of reality intersect. I think you'll find it educational." The fairy stands and looks around in wonder. Now that she's on the ground, she can see that this isn't just a random collection of crystal formations. There's a deliberate design to the arrangement, a sense of purpose and intelligence behind the layout. At the center of the courtyard stands the most magnificent structure of all, a tree made entirely of crystal, its trunk clear as diamond, its branches spreading wide and supporting leaves that catch and refract the light into countless rainbows. The tree pulses with a gentle rhythm, like a slow heartbeat made visible. Tending to this remarkable tree is another fairy, but unlike any she's ever encountered. This fairy's wings are translucent green like new leaves, and her entire being seems to glow with the same soft light that emanates from the crystal tree. "Welcome, sister," the green fairy calls out in a voice like wind chimes. "I am the guardian of the crystal tree, and I've been expecting you." She approaches with graceful steps that make no sound on the crystalline ground. "Your journey has brought you far from your vineyard home, hasn't it?" Through painted doorways and across dimensional boundaries. The fairy nods, still somewhat overwhelmed by the magical nature of this place. "I never imagined such realms existed." "Oh, there are many realms," the green fairy replies with a knowing smile. "Reality has layers upon layers, each more wonderful than the last. But come, there's someone you need to meet." She leads the way toward what appears to be a building at the edge of the crystal garden. But as they approach, the fairy realizes this structure is unlike anything she's seen, even in this realm of wonders. Instead of a traditional doorway, the entrance is marked by what can only be described as a portal, a shimmering, undulating oval of light that pulses with rainbow colors. "Don't be afraid," the green fairy says gently. "The portal is perfectly safe. You'll feel a slight tingling as you pass through, but that's just your physical form adjusting to the different vibrational frequency on the other side." Taking a deep breath, the fairy steps through the portal. The tingling sensation is exactly as described, a pleasant, effervescent feeling that flows through her entire body like champagne bubbles in her bloodstream. And then she's through. The space she emerges into is so unexpected she has to blink several times to make sure she is seeing correctly. She's standing in what appears to be a Victorian era shop, complete with dark wooden shelving, brass fittings, and that distinctive aroma of old wood and mysterious substances that seems to permeate such places. Gas lamps flicker along the walls, casting dancing shadows that make the shop feel alive and dynamic. The shelves are lined with bottles and jars containing substances she can't identify. Books bound in exotic leathers and curiosities that seem to shift and change when she's not looking directly at them. "Welcome, young seeker," comes a chorus of voices from deeper in the shop. 3 figures emerge from the shadows, beings who radiate wisdom and age. Despite appearing neither young nor old, they move with a deliberate grace that speaks of vast experience and deep understanding of the mysteries they guard. "We are the elders of the crossroads," one of them explains, their voice carrying harmonics that seem to resonate in her bones. "This shop exists at the intersection of all realities, and we are its guardians and guides. You have come here," says the second elder, "because you possess a rare gift, the ability to channel magical energy through music. But this ability is still in its infancy. You have the potential for so much more." The third elder steps forward, holding what appears to be a simple brass compass, though the needle spins freely without settling on any particular direction. "Your journey so far has been preparation. Now begins the real adventure, a quest that will test not just your magical abilities, but your understanding of the very nature of reality itself." "What must I do?" the fairy asks. Though part of her already knows, the answer will involve venturing into the unknown. "You must leave this shop," the first elder explains, "and journey into the ancient lands that lie beyond. There you will search for the Tunnel of Echoes, though we cannot tell you exactly where to find it or what form it will take. Along the way," adds the second elder, "you will encounter others, some who will help you, others who will challenge you. All are part of the greater pattern that will lead you to what you seek." The third elder holds up the compass. "This will guide you, but not in the way you might expect. Follow your intuition rather than its needle, and trust in the magic that flows through you." "But what am I seeking exactly?" the fairy asks. "What will I find in this tunnel?" "You will know when you find it," the elders reply in unison. "The greatest treasures cannot be described, only experienced." "One more thing," the first elder says as she prepares to leave. "You must leave your guitar here for now. This part of your journey must be undertaken without external magical aids. You'll understand why when the time comes, and you may retrieve your instrument on your return journey." With some reluctance, the fairy hands over her beloved guitar. The instrument seems to pulse with a faint light as the elder takes it, as if acknowledging the temporary separation. "Trust in yourself," the second elder says gently. "The magic was never in the guitar. It was always within you." The fairy nods, understanding the wisdom in this, despite her attachment to the instrument. She makes her way to the shop door, noting how the brass bell above it chimes with an impossibly pure tone as she pushes it open. The door closes behind her with another chime, and she finds herself standing on a cobblestone street that looks like something from a Victorian novel. Gas street lamps line the way, their flames flickering steadily, despite the absence of any detectable wind. The most striking thing about this place is the quality of sound, or rather, lack of Italiano. Every noise seems muffled, dampened, as if the air itself absorbs sound before it can travel far. Her footsteps on the cobblestones make only the faintest clicking, and even her own breathing seems unusually quiet. She walks slowly down the street, taking in the unusual shops and vendors that line both sides. There's a clockmaker's shop with timepieces that run backwards, a bookstore where the titles on the spines change as she watches, and a flower seller whose blooms seem to be made of colored glass yet smell like living roses. The people, if they can be called that, who populate the street, are as varied as the shops themselves. She sees beings that might be human, others that are clearly not, and some that seem to shift between forms as they move. All are dressed in clothing that spans centuries of fashion, yet somehow everything harmonizes into a coherent aesthetic. At the end of the street, the cobblestones give way to grass and wildflowers. The transition is abrupt. One step she's on stone, the next on soft earth covered with a carpet of green that stretches away toward rolling hills in the distance. She spreads her wings and takes to the air, grateful for the freedom of flight after the confined feeling of the muffled street. From this aerial perspective, she can see that the countryside ahead is vast and varied, with forests, meadows, streams, and hills, creating a patchwork landscape of incredible beauty. As she flies, she begins to notice small touches of red scattered throughout the landscape below, bright spots of color that stand out against the natural greens and browns. Curious, she descends for a closer look. The red marks turn out to be ribbons, silky scarlet ribbons tied around branches, tree trunks, and even large rocks. They flutter gently in the breeze, clearly placed deliberately as some kind of trail markers. Following these ribbons becomes a game, an adventure in itself. Sometimes they lead her along obvious paths, through meadows and along stream banks. Other times they guide her through dense woodlands where she has to navigate carefully between ancient trees, whose branches form a canopy so thick that little sunlight reaches the forest floor. The ribbons are spaced irregularly. Sometimes she can see the next one from where she stands. Other times she has to search carefully to spot the flash of red that marks the continuation of the trail. Each ribbon is tied with a different knot, suggesting they were placed by someone with both purpose and artistry in mind. After following the ribbon trail for what feels like hours, though the light filtering through the forest canopy makes it difficult to judge the passage of time accurately, she hears a small voice calling up to her from the forest floor. Looking down, she spots a beetle unlike any she's ever seen. Its shell is an iridescent black-green that shifts colors as it moves, creating rainbow patterns that dance across its surface. The beetle is considerably larger than the beetles she is familiar with from her vineyard home, about the size of a mouse, with delicate legs that seem almost too thin to support its jewel-like body. "Excuse me," the beetle calls up in a voice like tiny silver bells, "but you're following the ribbon trail, aren't you?" She descends to hover just above the forest floor, careful not to disturb the beetle with the Tao. "Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your night. May you find deep peace and restful sleep. Wishing you the sweetest dreams." If you liked it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Bye.